Yes! Skeksis, welcome, friends! Friends to all Gelfling, friends to all of Trae. Talk 8 and 9. Here, talk Unification, Resistance, and Death! Yes! Dark Crystal 8 and 9, start now!
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Sorry, I have no idea what that was. Welcome to the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance episodes 8 and 9. Oh my goodness, we are so close to the end. So close that I can taste the essence. I don't know about you, Angelica, but this was not easy to stop after 8 and 9. I was just like, I want to keep watching. I need to keep watching, but I had to stop.
Yeah, I had to hold myself back.
Yeah.
The final episode started, and I was like, no, and I had to click out, but I really wanted to keep watching.
Really wanted to keep watching it. And for those watching, first of all, hi, I'm Christian Bladt. Over there is Angelica Trae. Rachel Goodman has gone back to Thraw. Well, actually, that sounds like she's dead.
Wow, so, yeah, that's
she's,
terrifying.
She's on a very secret mission that, if we have a season 2, maybe she'll tell us more about it.
We miss her.
We do miss her, but we can dream fast when she gets back and find out all about this magic land called Portland. So, there was a lot that happened here, and what we want to let everybody know is right now we're watching and talking about episodes 8 and 9, and then Angelica and I are going to spend an hour. We're going to watch episode 10, and then at 3 p.m. Pacific, yes, that's 6 Eastern, you can watch us live on YouTube talking about episode 10, and we'll look back on the series as a whole. So we're going to get it all done today. So we tried to get it done over the course of the first weekend, but long weekends, it's crazy. So even on Thraw, there's no laboring on Labor Day. So we'll break down our characters kind of as we've done before in the last few episodes. So you should have watched both 8 and 9 to watch this conversation. If you've only watched 8, we're definitely going to ruin episode 9 for you. So don't let us do it. You enjoy it for yourselves. But before we start diving into the characters, I hadn't watched in a couple of days. I hadn't watched any since, I think, Thursday night. And so when I started, I'm like, oh, right, I forgot just how bad everything was in terms of like how dire the circumstances were.
Yeah, everything's escalated pretty hard.
Yeah.
And the stakes are very high right now, and they're just getting worse.
They're getting so much worse. And it was just like, well, I don't see any way out of this. I guess that's it. Because look, we're not going to talk too much about the movie, but Angelica and I both have seen the movie. So there's certain things that you can assume will happen at some point. Now, will they happen in this season of the show? Because I would assume not. Because they're probably expecting I mean, many trying of seasons, I think is what they're hoping for. But I'm hopeful that at least this story can end reasonably well. There were a few close calls in these episodes, people that I thought were done for, and then one of them actually was. So we'll talk about all of that as we go through. But let's talk about. We should start off with our main Gelfling. We should talk about Rion because it's a lot of just he's very lucky. He's made the right friends is really what it is.
Yeah, Rion's got, like you said, he's gotten pretty lucky along the way, and I definitely think, I don't know if he's our main Gelfling, so to speak, but he's definitely following the hero's journey.
He's definitely the hero, and I don't dislike it, he's just not my favorite.
Yeah. Well, because the hero's journey is a little played out, I think, for us, so we want to see different things, you know? That's why we love, Brea's storyline, that's why we love Deet's storyline, that's why we love Hup so much.
Yeah, Hup is my hero, just for whatever it's worth. He's definitely my hero. I would like to follow his journey in future seasons. And yeah, so thankfully that Deet is there because, pun intended, she is definitely the wings beneath his wind. Thank you.
The what?
The wings beneath his wind.
Oh my gosh,
what?
I hate this.
What? Just because I flipped a phrase? Come on, somebody in the chat's gonna not hate that. No, they probably.
I thought you were gonna make like a dirty Deets joke or something like.
Oh, dirty
Deet,
done dirt cheap. Dirty Deet, and
or
she
like
done
details,
dirt cheap. Yeah, providing many deets for Rion, and I think that if it helps immeasurably that where they needed to go was somewhere she was very familiar with, and that she can fly. because he's just like, well, I guess we're walking for 3 days, and she's like, no, let's not do that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about kind of the pair, because Rian and Deet really are always, at least at this point in the series, they're really hand in hand, literally at one point. So I think that their mission is clearly essential to the survival of the Gelflings, and of course for the survival of Thra, because if the darkening spreads, it's not really going to matter who's there, because even the Skeksis aren't taking into consideration that the darkening would impact them at some point.
I know. How are the Skeksis not aware of this? They're just completely turning a blind eye here to the darkening and how there's an eventuality to this, Sustainability. Come on, guys.
They're just so high on essence. Like, they're just not thinking straight.
I know. All they can do is talk about essence.
I know.
Makes sense, but come on, Skeksis. You know better.
Well, apparently only a couple of them know better, because most of them are just ready to go with the flow, and
the flow of essence.
The essence is flowing very freely in this episode. Yeah. Some surprising essence too. So I think that I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on these 2 episodes in particular. The arc, so they go to the caves, and of course Deet runs into her brother, who's adorable, by the way, little Bobbin.
He's so cute.
I know, he's the cutest.
But then he turns a little scary.
But then he comes back around,
Kind of.
Yeah, but there's
there's definitely a creep factor after that.
Total creep factor.
Yeah.
Like, you're never gonna
I don't trust him.
I would always keep one eye open around Bobbin, no matter what happens, no matter what the alliance is with the Ascendancy. So tell me what you thought about just going on this very specific journey with them as we get to the penultimate episode 9.
I think it's pretty much got everything we want. Like, the stakes are building here, the tension is super high. We're seeing some really cool just side characters coming in.
Yeah.
We're seeing epic journeys. A little sad about Hup, sort of taking a step back a bit.
I wish he wasn't marginalized.
I know. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like, okay, now I miss him. He was a major character, but it's okay. I'll just be sad and cry about it. But the cool thing is now we have some awesome new kind of weapons and things involved in here, and we're actually seeing some combat, which is amazing.
I spent some time this weekend looking for good Hup memes to try and use, and the beginning of the weekend there weren't a lot of them, because most people didn't start watching until Friday.
Yeah.
Then thankfully there were some by yesterday, so I was able to just tweet out, just because I just wanted to see him in action. I wasn't, it was a long weekend. My kids were home from school. I wasn't going to get to, this is on the short list of Henson properties that I would never watch in front of my children. As cute as some of the characters are, so I just needed a little Hup fix. So I was glad to see him in these episodes, but barely. I did like some of the back and forth between Rian and Deet, and as we've talked about in recent episodes, it's kind of getting a Mira Who vibe from Rian. There's a couple of almost some Gelfling on Gelfling smooching, and there's you're just a very tender, let me help you up and all that, and then just her talking about all the nicknames they have for the above ground dwellers, and then just sort of a very male response to it'll be fine when you meet my family, and he's like, what?
Yeah.
I gotta meet the parents.
Yeah, no, they're definitely pushing a little bit of that shipping agenda here,
which is good, because I think that they're very cute together. And
they are.
And I think that as long as they can work together, that's the important thing.
Yeah.
Don't get too distracted making kissy faces.
I guess my usual thing here is I'm not a huge fan of the love story or romances being thrown into these action stories a lot of times,
because you're part Vulcan.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But I guess I do like that they're both Gelfling, but they're from such different clans. So we've got the warrior clan, we've got Rian, and then we've got Deet, who's very empathetic and compassionate. And so I do kind of like that balance. And it makes me overcome my distaste for random love stories sometimes, especially here.
Yeah, no, especially here. And we can feel for, Deet sort of getting to her home, seeing it destroyed, and seeing her family kind of, under the control of the spitters, the ascendancy, and I thought that it was just interesting because they didn't make a big deal about it, but did she have two dads in the earlier episode and I just didn't remember it? Because it's like, oh, fathers. And I was like, oh, hey, okay. I didn't remember that at all.
I thought it was I don't know, like I thought it was just a paternal.
Maybe that's what it is. But I was just like, okay, that's cool. And like, don't make a big deal about it. Just be like, yeah, well, this is just normal. And I thought it was fun that I was like, oh, she's got two dads. And then little Bobbin's like, fathers, So I thought that was like a cool little nod to the modern world. The Thra, where unfortunately in our Thra, the darkening is probably spread too far and we can't stop it. But let's have fun while we still can and watch some Netflix. But I thought it was cool to build up, obviously the different clans and all the characters that we saw. But I really felt like it kind of reestablished Deet's family and just her, her inclusion, and then just Rion being an important part of that family for her.
Yeah.
So let us know what you think in the chat. Another big part of these episodes is the dynamic between Brea, Celadon, and Tavra. And I would say for the first time, I found myself feeling bad for Celadon, but she did do it to herself.
I felt bad for her. It's tough. It's like a complex relationship that I have with Celadon because I constantly find myself angry with her. Like, she's one of the few characters that I was like, I just want her to get her hopes dashed, because she's not in like an evil way, but rather like she's built up such a not like an I don't know, such an oppositional like nature in this show, and just kind of like ignoring everything that's going on and turning her back here on her family and her entire like species, that I was very frustrated with this character. But I did feel bad. I did. And then by the end of like episode 8, I didn't feel bad because she was like finger pointing still.
Yeah. Like in the moment. So, she's like, she goes there, she's like, I'm the Almadra, I'm going to broker peace, very condescending to Agra when she warns her about it, and just like, you know what, let me get this done, everything's gonna be fine, I'm gonna go ahead and get the peace that my mother should have asked for.
You have to have some like real what's the word I want? Just real gall to stand up to Agra like that. Because everyone knows, like, everyone's afraid of Agra. Like, how are you going to do that?
Yeah, Come on, and she's all-knowing. And you're like, I know better than a know-it-all.
She's literally got a third eye. How are you going to mess with someone
She's got
with
eyes
a third
to
eye?
spare.
How are you going to question someone that can literally see into the cosmos and you're like, no, you're wrong?
And so the fact that when she goes and approaches the Skeksis and, tries to broker this peace, the fact that everything she asks for, they say, no, very condescending, just like, no, I don't think so. And they go so far as to be like, oh, but we are draining your essence. And it's because it's so delicious. And the one Gelfling who takes her crown is like, look, I rule over the dead. And then, they are very violent to her. I actually thought that they were like mauling her and would have like killed her or something.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about too. I was like, oh my gosh, like that's no way to take the essence.
Yeah, it's like you can't just eat them. You have to like actually like drink it.
That was very aggressive.
I was just thinking, I'm like, look, I know that they're savage and I'll clearly show no mercy, as was pointed out many times.
And I think the more essence that they consume too, I honestly, it seems like they're getting more and more like driven mad.
Yeah.
In this, and it's like definitely like a drug, like an addictive quality here.
Right. I mean, you see definitely a change in them, and the interesting thing is that the Chamberlain really has become more rational than some of the other ones because he's been denied essence so much. And I think he's able to be a little bit more reasoned, but certainly taking advantage of the other Skeksis and, always pulling strings and knowing exactly which buttons to push for everyone, really. And I think that the idea that Celadon still, when she's in prison, they bring Brea in, and she's like, so this all happened because of you.
Yeah, she's still in denial here, and it was aggravating to see. So you guys, in case you don't know, I'm handling live chat right now.
Yes.
And I'm seeing Art Master Austin Prophet saying, I was shocked by how dark the Almadra went. She was willing to sacrifice her fellow Gelfs.
Yeah, I mean, and she was just like, some, and look,
Celadon, come on.
I thought Bray asked a great question. Who decides who lives and who dies? You? And she's like, yes. Only I'm strong enough to make the tough decisions.
You've got a Khaleesi moment here.
For real. And she's just like, and Bray is just like, oh no, what's happened to you, sister? And I think that it's great that they see Tavra, but of course at that point, Tavra is still part of the Ascendants, and even just seeing her in that state, I think it brings them together a little bit. But it really, the whole time, it's very tenuous, Brea and Celadon's relationship throughout the course of these episodes. But let's talk about the fact that when Tavra is, at least as we find out, she can't separate now. She was forever going to be a part of the Ascendants, which I thought was interesting.
Well, it's funny too, because Tavra's role as even just between the sisters was sort of a liaison role, and then she's got the Aratham on her face now, and now she's like another secondary liaison here between the Aratham and just connecting everyone. Tavra's like the true node here.
Yeah, and I think that obviously everything sort of hinged upon her, and just I mean, she was so I really thought that Tavra was going to kill the general, because we knew he was weaker because he had been denied essence by the Chamberlain once again, the very clever Chamberlain, figuring out, let me get the weakest characters in the show as basically my allies, those guys with their mouth shut. I forget what their name is. Sorry, everybody. It's hard to keep track.
They're so sad, too.
I know. Every time. Yeah. And then the saddest thing was when the Chamberlain says, don't tell anybody. And he just points to his mouth. He's like, dude, my mouth is sewn shut.
I know.
I'm not going to tell anybody anything.
I can't even tell, too, if they are actually just sad all the time because of, Skeksis and them just being so tyrannical.
Yeah.
But... or they just have resting sad face. I can't decide, but it's really sad to watch, and I'm just like, free them, please.
Yeah, and so, but what we see ultimately is, in that moment, Tavra is unfortunately mortally wounded by the Chamberlain, and I get the sense, and tell me if you agree, Angelica, that Brea and Celadon, at least in that moment, they realize that for Tavra's sake, they need to see this thing through. They're going to have to work together, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think because the sisters were connected through Tavra, it's we had Celadon and Brea butting heads constantly, but, Tavra being thrown into peril here, I think really connected them and sort of bridged those differences that they might have, or the different approaches they had, and was a huge wake-up call, because who doesn't love Tavra?
Yeah.
Even as a part Aratham.
Right, exactly.
Speaker here. So Art Master says Tavra is a kick-ass Gelfling. Very true. She is coming up. She's stepping up, honestly, in these episodes.
Yeah, I mean, she was tougher than, at least as tough as any of the characters. I mean, she could have squared off against the Hunter, possibly. You know, and I think it was great. They did a good job on building that character, but it made sense that Tavra was going to have to die for Brea and Celadon to realize how important it is to work together.
But it's so sad.
It is so sad. And all of the Gelfling realize that they're going to have to work together. And by the way, this is an oversight on my part. When we're talking about Deet, I completely forgot to mention that, she's now got the power of the Century Tree. So she can heal the... I see my notes are so long and drawn out that the Nurlock that had the darkening inside of him, that she was just like, let me just take it away. And the Century Tree makes it what is clearly a very important point to Deet, and that's why I wanted to go back to this. The Century Tree points it out that the darkening is just energy, and you can't destroy it. You can only transfer it. So if only there were something that was gigantic and a source for a tremendous amount of power that, I don't know, might already have the word dark in its name. I'm just thinking outside of the box. Maybe I'm jumping a little bit far ahead. I'm like, I think I know where the darkening could end up. Just thinking. And but clearly that's so important, because first of all, you've just made Deet like way more badass because like in addition to how cool she was, it's like, oh yeah, now I can do all this stuff.
Yeah,
you know?
but now I'm nervous because if you remember, like, what was it, like the first episode, second episode with Deet?
Yeah.
We saw those like flashbacks, or no, they were flash forwards, I guess.
We saw some future Deet.
Yeah, and I don't know if these were maybe like all the options here, like maybe you can choose paths within this,
Right.
or if it's a deterministic.
Well, when she got
flash forward.
the power from the Century Tree, I think we also saw some similar flashes forward of herself and other characters.
And like corruption.
Yeah.
And we don't want to corrupt Deet because she's so pure.
I know. And then, plus, I mean, then Rion's going to have lost like 2 girlfriends in a week. Come on.
Oh, you're going to empathize with that?
Well, I just thought it was,
Rion.
just thought it was a funny thing to say. But it would be
Rion.
Hey, you know, how many times can his heart break, all right? Just say, you know. And think about poor Hup.
Poor Hup.
I know Hup, all he's got to live for is Deet, you know? So if something were to happen to her, I would be really worried about Hup.
I'm still sad, like, Hup didn't get his, like, formal...
I know, he's still got a spoon.
Yeah, well, he's got his spoon, but he finally got recognized for, like, his bravery, but it couldn't be formal because it was so rushed, and I just feel so bad. Poor Hup.
Well, maybe, you know, in episode 10, it'll be like the end of the first Star Wars movie when everybody gets the medals and, you know, it's a big deal, and then he has, like, a little paladin uniform, and he finally... And instead, he has, like, a spork because he still likes the spoon, but it's got some points on it.
Oh, yeah, and it's like a metaphor.
Yes.
Like he's gotten, you know, edgier.
He's gotten edgier,
Season.
but also the importance of unification because you have the forks and the spoons coming together, just like all the Gelflings are coming together. And Aughra, of course, as we alluded to, has eyes to spare. So,
Yeah, she's just giving him away left and right.
Yeah.
It's like candy on Halloween.
I know.
She's like, you get an eye, you get an eye.
It's like Oprah.
She's like,
Everybody, you win an eye!
and now she's got like, you know, she's got the little Aratham like delivery system going with her eyes.
But it just shows that it's a great character building moment early in episode 8 because she's like, yeah, I'm going to help you because Aughra helps all of Thra. Yeah, I know you tried to possess me. That's not what she said, but you tried to take control of my mind. But she's like, of course I'm going to help you. And
I love that moment too when she grabs it. She's like, you try to control Aughra? Aughra can't even control Aughra.
I know. Oh yeah, that's right. You weren't here when we talked about episode 7.
That was amazing.
That was such a great thing to say.
Yeah. I was like, mood.
I know. I do love me some Aughra. And I thought you know, she doesn't have a lot of screen time in this episode, although her eye gets more screen time than she does. But she has clearly a very important role, and she shows up and approaches the Skeksis and makes an offer that she's so much smarter than they are, and she has such a reputation about her that when she says, like, she makes the deal that I'm going to give you my essence because Gelfling essence isn't strong enough to heal the hunter. But I can. And then it's like, great, we're going to take it from you. It's like, well, you've been with the crystal for so long, but you don't understand it. I have to give my essence. The crystal can't take it away. And they're like, all right, sounds good to me. We're going to have to believe you. You know, I'm surprised that there wasn't at least one Skeksis that was like, yeah, let's try anyway. Let's see what happens. Let's not set the Gelfling free.
Yeah, it was definitely a moment where I think it was like Aughra's like speech, you know, like in when you play a game and like the speech goes like plus 50. It was like that, like her persuasive skills were so good.
Yeah.
That she was able to negotiate that. And it was so sweet because it further solidifies Aughra's love for every living thing, you know, on Thra, and how she can sacrifice but also sort of manipulate her way through things and saving, you know, any life no matter what, whether it be, you know, this cute little creature. They all mean so much. So being able to sacrifice and like at least save a few Gelfling, even momentary, because I'm sure she you know fully believed Skeksis would hold true on that promise.
Yeah.
But it was like a sweet moment, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that she knows enough of what's going on and she's seen enough possible futures that she knows giving them a chance to get away is at least going to sort of help with them taking the big stand against the Skeksis, you know. That, sure, they're going to then herd them up and try and kill them. By the way, the order to then, like, kill them was just like, well, that's really narrow thinking, Skeksis, because we know how much you love Essence. Why would you kill them instead of, I don't know, just have some. How do they not have some like, magic like knockout gas or something? It's just like put them all to sleep, and then we're gonna eat that delicious essence.
Yeah, it's very wasteful, Skeksis.
I know. Well, here's the thing though. They're just so gorged full of essence, and they're so convinced that that they're immortal no matter what they do, that they're just not thinking clearly. So they make this deal with Agra, and I want to know if you felt the same way. It didn't work at first. Do you think that it only worked because she wanted it to work at a certain point?
I think you mean draining her essence,
yeah,
right?
Because it just didn't work at first. And she just sat there. It's like barely a tickle.
Well, I think it's because I think there's a few things here. There's a lot of different factors. Agra is super powerful, right? So she, it probably takes more, maybe like power or more time. I don't know, maybe like a higher power of like drainage. I'm not sure exactly how this machine
the scientists
works.
did up the wattage, if you will.
I was like, what terminology should we use here?
I don't quite know how that machine works. They didn't really explain it to us.
And I think it also extends out to Agra's like personality here too, because her character is so stubborn that it would make sense that it takes a little bit more for this for the essence to be drained out of her, and that she could resist it. And I think that's a huge moment too, is like you can see her resistance here, and it's it's metaphorical and it does take more. And I think we saw this throughout the show, symbolically, but now we're seeing it in its own like event here.
Yeah, and I think that Agra, so many times on this show we've drawn parallels to Star Wars, but
the darkening.
Well, it seems like such an obvious thing. It's like the idea of, Ben Kenobi. It's like, you strike me down now, I'm only going to be more powerful. So she just knows like, oh, you're just going to destroy my body. That's fine. I'm going to go be in the crystal, and we're not that worried about Mother Agra, because as long as Thra is still alive, Mother Agra is still alive. So I think she just knew like, I'm going to give this of myself. And so they finally do this transference, and while the hunter is healing, we see that the archer is also starting to have a little bit of shows of life. And this is, of course, another moment to see Hup. So, of course, very exciting for me. Hashtag Team Hup 4, LYFE. But I think that we see that, obviously she's bringing some life back to them, but it's clearly way too much, and it doesn't work in the way it sort of overloads the hunter system, and they decide that he is dead. Do you think that that's an accurate interpretation of what happened there?
I think he is mostly dead. Just kidding. Okay, I just want to do Princess Bride.
Well, if I'm going to throw in Star Wars, you get to throw in Princess Bride. It all works.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, and here's the thing. He's mostly dead because we see his finger twitch at one point. Mm-hmm. And I think that whatever that level of life, whatever that ability is, I think Agra knew exactly that would happen. They've got him in the finest armor on display, which is sort of a weird thing, because you're going to tell me that Skeksis corpses don't rot and start to stink after a certain point. They're like, we're not going to bury him. We're not going to burn him. We're just going to put him on display.
I think that's like a big moment, though, because I think that kind of shows how little they deal with death.
Well, yeah, because they make the point that there hasn't been a death in 1,000 Trine, mm-hmm. and they say since the beginning. Now, those of us who saw the puppet show that explained the history, it was when the Mystics and the Skeksis were one. So we're understanding that at that point, no one has died since that point, since that they were separated. And so he's the first Skeksis to die. And they do mention others that aren't there, that they're wondering, oh, should we call these ones over? And then, of course, my pal, the Chamberlain's like, no, too many Skeksis. So it's just like, and everybody's always like, God, you're so annoying, Chamberlain, but yeah, we're going to listen to you anyway. I don't know. It's just something about him that they feel like, he must be smarter than us. But
well, he's got a way with words, for sure.
It's true, he does. He definitely does.
And I feel like you've been practicing your voice. I've been seeing it like some improvement here.
Yeah, because it
It's
wasn't
impressive.
as good. It wasn't as good before.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the Chamberlain might be the only one that I do, because if I try to do the scientist, it's just going to turn into Mark Hamill's Joker, because obviously that's also him. So I don't know.
Just real quick, do you practice right after you watch the episodes in the car?
Just in my head while I'm watching.
In your head?
Yeah.
Not like a shower, like where people sing in the shower?
I think my family would be terrified if they heard, that if I was like standing under the faucet and just taking in the water and draining the essence from.
Oh my gosh!
just
That's
taking
like the
it
bond of family, like shared trauma.
Yeah,
like
there's
that.
like, what was going on in there? My son's crying under his bed because he just doesn't know. So, we'll see. We'll see if maybe we get to hear some more Skeksis impressions when we do episode 10 at 3 p.m. Pacific.
Ooh, I'm excited.
After
we'll
we watch
practice.
episode 10. Yeah, well, maybe that's true. Maybe we'll see if you have any Skeksi in you.
I'll try.
All right, we'll see.
Try my
We'll see
best.
what you have. So the Skeksis, as they talk about it at the end of episode 9, they're getting a lot of bad news.
Mm-hmm.
They find out that the hunter actually can die when they were convinced that they were immortal, which I still don't know what that's based on, because like they've only been able to have this essence for a week, maybe 2. We just round up, say maybe it's taken 2 weeks at this point. So I don't quite know what makes them think that they weren't going to die. I guess Trae stealing the power from the crystal all this time.
I think it's denial, honestly,
Yeah.
because it's like they hadn't experienced death for so long that it felt probably like that's all they knew. And I think it was mixed here with, them having to convince themselves of this, superiority complex. So they had to say, we're immortal. They had to talk it up. So if you say something enough within a group, there's that group think that happens, and then everyone starts to believe it, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. And speaking of groupthink, the Skeksis, along with everyone on Thra, get to watch basically Rion, he takes over everybody's devices. It's like how the VMAs are on like 12 channels at once. It's just Rion's everywhere you look. And the reunification of the glaive, it didn't really take that long. The one half, it's just in a walking stick, and then the other one's like, oh, I know where it is. You just got to go get it out of the forge in Stone in the Wood.
I love that though. They're just like, oh, you mean, the glaive? That's all you wanted? Here you go.
What
and
didn't you ask for? Yeah.
Open the stick.
And by the way, I was relieved that was only half of it. I'm like, wait, so the whole so it's just there in the stick. Okay, and Rachel and I talked about this in previous episodes, and we've all talked about this before, is that a lot of times you think you're getting set up for something that's going to be a big journey, a big battle, and then it's like, oh, no, that actually didn't happen. Or it happened off screen.
Mm-hmm.
When I think it was before episode 6, when all the Gelfling were basically slaughtered and drained for essence. We didn't even see it on camera, which I'm relieved, by the way. I didn't need to see that.
But I also think, with this pacing, it's part of the charm, that like the whole Jim Henson-esque charm that he's built up with this is like you have these moments of buildup, and then there's almost like this anticlimactic, oh, that's how it works. So I definitely think tonally it works, and it's consistent with the pacing.
No, I definitely agree with that. Rion basically gives a very heartfelt speech. It is, I don't know, like you were saying before from a game, that like speech was very plus 50, maybe even plus more. To me, it's also like sort of the big defining moment in like Braveheart, when you're just talking to everybody. Everybody's like, yeah, let's go do it. And he just talks about the Skeksis deceived us, turned clan against clan. They brought the darkening to the world. Everything's at risk, and this is a hero line from Rion. What was once unthinkable is now inevitable. He's got the dual glaive, and he talks about the foretelling that'll end their power, and the Skeksis fear what would happen if we were to be united. And you start to hear from some of the Skeksis like, oh, wait, he's got the dual glaive? Oh, no, I really... The
famed dual glaive.
The heretic.
Yeah.
Come on. He sold us out like that just because we outcast him and gave him a name like the heretic? That is not cool. And you can see that, the Skeksis are not quite as confident as they were. So before we talk about the follow-up speech by the Emperor, talk a little bit about that moment, and as we see all the different Gelfling watching it, and the Skeksis reacting, and also how you reacted when you saw Rian have his super duper hero moment.
His like 5 minutes of fame almost,
For
like
real,
across all of Thra.
Yeah.
I thought that was a pretty epic moment, honestly. It was good to see a final, just one pinnacle point of the Gelfling rising up and being able to declare that and stand up towards, to the Skeksis here. So it felt really good to watch. And then, of course, we see the Skeksis sort of like that conflict and them, try to fight back. But I think it's like, it was a good pivotal moment where we all realized that there's no turning back here. And it's like a declaration of war.
And it's clearly a declaration of war. And I think it's interesting that the way that episode 9 ends is Deet asks, do you think all the Gelfling heard you? And Rian's like, yeah, but will they come? And I'm just like, well, if they don't, we don't really have a good episode 10 waiting for us in mere minutes. So I'm going to guess that they're all going to come.
I mean, I'm sure there's going to be at least one tribe that stays back, Maybe they're going to try to wait it out a little bit. Like, oh, this is just a terrible winter, and maybe we can wait this one out.
No, it's like the people who, no matter what they tell them, they're going to ride out the hurricane. They're just like, no, we're going to be all right.
Because, each one has different moods here, right? So we've got a whole clan that's based around being a warrior and fighting. And they're definitely going to be the ones to step up in here, like Stone in the Wood. And then we've got, a clan that's based around death and things like, respecting death. So maybe they will be more likely to run into battle. I'm not sure.
In our final moment, I'm going to bring this back around to Star Trek because I think that's a good way for us to talk. I'm surprised that there isn't a clan that's like the Ferengi. There's like the negotiator, like prophet is king sort of. And by prophet, I mean Profit, not like Mother Agra. There isn't sort of that, where it's like, oh, we're not going to fight. We're just going to figure out, how we can take advantage. Because that would be a tribe that I'm like, we're not fighting. No. When you guys all kill each other, we're going to sell, mementos to the big battle of Thra. So, but we didn't get that, did we?
Yeah.
I don't know. But I could have used a Gelfling Ferengi. But the way that the other half of the...
Ferengi?
Yeah, why not? That's what I'm just saying.
Oh, gosh. So, I feel like Skeksis would be Ferengi here.
No, because they actually could... Well, see, here's the thing.
I would love a Ferengi podling, too.
That would be pretty adorable.
That would be so cute, like a bar owner.
So you basically made Quark into it.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
But the Emperor knows he does need to rally his troops a little bit. It's like, it's all right. We're gonna leave at dawn, and they do have their plan for, to have basically like the corpses of the spitters reanimated. And I was just like, okay, so the scientist is just going to snap that. Like, really, he's just going to do that right away? You have enough time to get an army of like Walking Dead spitters? And I'm like, I don't think so. I feel like there's not enough time because, look, we know the scientist.
The scientist is really skilled, though. He's been pulling some stuff out of his sleeve.
He's good at his job, but is he great at his job? Would you hire him again? Would you give him a 30% raise going into the next quarter?
Well, he's
wouldn't.
being strong-armed a little bit after we saw the Emperor kind of dealing with his animal friends, too.
Yeah, that's true.
A few episodes back.
So the Emperor says that they're going to crush the rebellion, destroy the dual glaive, and feast upon their essence. Well, that sounds like all in a day's work for the Skeksis. But, the Skeksis have definitely got sort of ruling class mentality because, yeah, they can fight a little bit, especially like the general, but most of them, they're not very well skilled in hand-to-hand anything. The general almost gets killed by Tavra, and then the other one just starts shrieking I don't know who that one is because we're 9 episodes in and I'm like, why don't they have name tags? The Gelfling were easier to figure out who the different ones were, but the Skeksis, it's good when they refer to them by their title, like Chamberlain and Emperor and things like that, and they have names, which we hear sometimes. So that one, I don't know, is that the Collector? Is that because that's like that could be the one that sounds the most like Aquafina.
Yeah.
And I haven't been able to place where she's been. So if you're watching in the chat, whether you're watching live or the archive, let us know who that other Skeksis was in the tunnels with Tavra, who basically got spit on and was like, all right, I'm out.
Who's keeping tabs over here?
Yeah,
on the Skeksis?
I'm sorry, it's not me. But in any case, That's where we're going to leave it here because Angelica and I, we have to go rush off and watch episode 10.
We do.
And if you haven't watched it yet, watch it over the course of the next hour and then join us a little bit after 3 Pacific. That is indeed 6 Eastern. And we will see you over there for episode 10. But until then, Angelica, where can people find you?
You can find me on most social media, Trae, AYYTRAE, and Instagram at Angelica Trae.
And as I wrote over the weekend, I'm living that Hup life at Christian DMZ on Twitter and Instagram. Thanks, everyone. We will see you in 1 hour to do the series or season finale of Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.